Hello and welcome back to the Martingale Emerging Media Minute or Two. This week we are going to be talking about the dispersion of information on social media from experts to a lay person, a normal person who isn't an expert in a specific field. We saw this a lot during COVID when experts such as Dr. Fauci or members of the CDC would try to put out information about vaccine availability or what the vaccines do for you, as well as how COVID-19 spreads. And we also see this a lot during elections, where people will make threads on Twitter of here's what's on the ballot this year, or here's who's running, here are topics that are really important when considering who to vote for at this election. It is a responsibility of experts to be able to communicate this information effectively and in a way that people will understand. Sarah Anderson writes in an article that experts need to be trained in science communication in order to effectively put information out on social media, because it can be really damaging if they express something incorrectly. She also mentions that experts need to recognize the limitations in their own knowledge, as she says. One example of this is that I'm from Virginia Beach, and the mayor, Bobby Dyer, came out with all this false information about the COVID-19 pandemic and about masks. And he basically was saying to trust him because he's a doctor. His experience was in physical therapy. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm having heart problems, I'm not going to my dentist. If I'm having tooth problems, I'm not going to a cardiologist. You have to know who the experts are in a specific field. Another interesting finding from this week's readings came from an article by Klar et al. Not sure how to pronounce it, but it's Klar. And this article talks about how information is able to spread on Twitter very well. And there isn't a difference for experts on whose gender is more successful in pushing information. In other words, male researchers are not more effective at spreading their articles on Twitter than female experts. This is really important because in the past, experts have had to focus on journals and conferences and things like that to disperse information. And unfortunately, what would end up happening is a lot of that information stays in that field of scholars or experts. It's important for all forms of experts to be spreading information on social media. However, another article this week by Jaworska and Delegista found that economists are not as effective on social media in terms of communicating with people outside of their field. Scientists are much better, and the best followed ones are followed because they're good at engaging with people on social media. Now, we've talked about this already, but it's really important to be replying to people on social media and quoting tweets and things like that rather than just putting out content, because you're not going to get as much of a following. A quote from the reading said that they need to focus their communication on talking more with people rather than at them. I really liked this quote because it really opens up this flow of information as more of a communication and a discussion rather than a one-way flow where you're only intaking information and not able to ask clarifying questions. There's a lot of room for growth when it comes to communication on topics such as politics, science, technology, health, anything. And it's really important to improve upon this because so many people are dependent on social media. A lot of people have used it to cope with stress during the pandemic. So while they're on there just browsing, it'd be really helpful to learn something. I'm frequently saving threads that I see that are along the lines of, so many people use Google Chrome, but nobody knows how to use these extensions. And I can go back to them and see if there are any that would make my life easier. My challenge for you this week is to go on some form of social media and find either a thread or a post about a form of technology or a scientific discovery that you do not know much about and learn something. That's all. I'll see you next week.